I heard there was a secret chord. David played it peaceful. But you don't really care for music, do you? We go like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composing Hallelujah. 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 Try to switch to this other one, the same key. I loved you for a long, long time. I know this love is real. Don't matter how it all went wrong. That don't change the way I feel. I don't believe that time can heal this wound I'm speaking of. Ain't no cure. Ain't no cure for love. I don't expect a medal just because the scene got rough. I see you've been so careful now to forget how good it was, but I ain't never giving in now. I ain't never giving up. There ain't no cure, ain't no cure, ain't no cure for love. There ain't no cure for love. Aha!
Thank you, Billy. That was great. I'm glad. Okay. Today is the 7th of November, 2023, and I'm speaking with Billy Gurley, and my name is David Pyle, and we're doing this interview at the Rocky Mountain Regional VA Medical Center in Aurora, Colorado, as part of the Remembering Our Veterans program. So, Billy Gurley, hi. Thank you for coming today. I appreciate you taking time to do this. Huh? So if you would, Bill, would you tell us a bit about your early life there, your childhood, and where you grew up, and your formative years?
Yes. I was born on the 4th of July, 1945, in I think it's the Jewish Hospital on Colorado Boulevard in Colfax, and I was born there. My mother was Alberta Catherine Schraw was her name, and my father was William Judson Gurley, and I was well. My first memory of my I'll get into this. I don't know, changed it a little bit, but my first memory of in my life was coming home from the hospital, and the reason I remember this is because I have an older sister. I had an older sister. She's now passed, and she was 4 years older, and she had been in her life for 4 years without anybody else. And when I came in, she was very jealous of me. And the first thing I really remember is being in my bed, my crib, and having her come in and pinch me very hard, and I'd start crying. And so that was my first memory. My sister, I did love my sister though, and she turned out to be kind of evil, but I did love her, and that's her choice, you know. Things,
So did that relationship persist throughout your life then?
yes, the whole relationship of her disliking me did, and I loved her.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, when she died, she had 2 children, but when she died, one of the last requests was she asked her husband and her children was, "Don't tell Billy that I'm dead." That was one of her last requests. So, you know, and she did some horrible things to my mother too, and you know, it wasn't. But I didn't care. I loved her. She was my sister,
Yeah.
and I kind of believe in this thing called unconditional love, and most people don't know what it is. But you don't necessarily approve of things that people do, but despite whatever they've done, you love them. And a lot of people don't understand that. That's what it was with me and her. And I guess what we're doing in my early life, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I did my first memory. Well, and then I went to Asbury grade school, and I went there as a kindergartner too, and we lived on South Marion, and we were catty corner 2 doors down from the school, so it was quite close, and I could go back and forth easily. And one of the memories I have there is I had eczema really bad in my on my legs and in the back of my knees. I have eczema really bad. I couldn't stop itching, and they gave me salve, and they put boxing gloves on me at one time to sleep in so I wouldn't scratch myself, and I tore them off naturally and started scratching myself. But I was very young, and so when I was about, I think, 8 years old or around that age, I went to school one day, and then I was going to go home for lunch, and I couldn't walk. My legs were infected, and the infection had gone up to, you know, when blood comes up your legs, then it's pretty infected. And so I ended up, it wasn't very far, but I ended up crawling across the street to get to the house. And then in those days, they wouldn't have taken you to the doctor. They just called the doctor, and the doctor came to the house and gave you whatever you needed. And that was what they did. So that was one of my first memories, was being very sick. And that eczema actually persisted until I joined the Navy. Right before I joined the Navy, it kind of ended. So it was with me all my life, or most of it, or a lot of it, I should say.
Yeah. You know, earlier you had mentioned something about your grandfather and his owning did printing.
Oh yeah, the grandfather Gurley had a printing business. He was one of the first people in Colorado to have printed photographs that they used to send to the drugstore. You'd turn them into the drugstore, and then they'd send them to a printer, and people would come back and get them. And his business was called Brightone Company, and he owned basically a square block of downtown Denver at the time, which was, I mean, Denver was a small place. There was no Thornton, or, you know, it was under 100,000 people at that time when I was born. But he had kind of a monopoly on printing. So he was very rich. My mother was Alberta Catherine Shaw, and she came from a very poor family with 3 other siblings that lived in a very small house, and she was very beautiful too, and she was a real nice woman. My grandmother was Bertha Shaw. Now Bertha and this is my mother's children, Bertha and Albert. They were very kind to us children, and she used to have 6. There were 6 cousins. We were all boys, and we would stay there in the summer. And she knew how to take care of us. She kept a paddle on the wall, and all she had to do was look at the paddle, and we'd say, "Oh yeah, okay." We knew, and she had certain rules: no fighting with each other, no arguing, no hanky panky. We had bedtimes and stuff, and they were wonderful people. And actually, I grew up a lot with them. And then the other part of my family was the Gurleys, and my uncle had a section of land at Colorado Boulevard and 120th, and he had a farm out there with animals, and corn is what he raised. But he had quite a big farm out there, so I used to go out there, and there was a couple little ponds on there where we'd go swimming, and then I could ride the horses, and we had a section of land to ride horses around on, so it was pretty cool. So I would spend my summers between. Usually I wasn't home very much. I would either be at my Uncle Gordon's house or my grandma and grandpa Schraub. But my grandma and grandpa Gurley I'd see them, but they were they were rich, but they were uppity about it. And they try to sort of bribe me against loving my other grandmother more than I did them by giving me 50 cents or $1 or something.
Oh.
It didn't work naturally and I liked them too, but I mentioned my sister saying the last thing she said to me was, "Don't tell Billy I'm dead." I mentioned that. Well, the last thing my grandmother told me is, "You should have never been born." And so they were kind of evil. She was my grandmother. Her name was Isabel Gurley was her name. But that's.
What about your parents? Were they
Parents,
together? Did they?
No, my parents. Well, back in the day, my mother was complicit. There was a rule that people believed in back in the day was spare the rod, spoil the child. So I got lots of rod, only the rod was a belt. And I got more than my sister, but occasionally my dad would beat both of us, and my mother would say, my dad would come home and she'd say, "Billy needs, something," and I'd get whipped. And so me and my sister figured out that if we put some kind of padding in our buttocks, that it wouldn't hurt so much, because he'd leave our clothes on.
Yeah.
And so we put that in. He found out naturally that we were doing it, and said, so then we were always spanked bare butt, which would, it was brutal. And that's what, and also back in the day, the teachers had the right to do things like that, because in my grade school, one of my teachers actually grabbed me by the hair and picked me up, because she didn't like what I was saying. But I was, more than likely, I had taken on my uncle's vocabulary and probably were cursing at her, because I don't know, my uncle sort of, at his farm and stuff, he was very profane most of the time, and so that's probably where I got my mouth, aside from the Navy.
Yeah.
But
so, whatever, you graduated from high school. What year did you graduate from high school?
Oh no, high school. I went to first I went to Stephen Knight, which was a grade school, and it was fairly affluent because we lived next to the polo grounds and stuff, and we had a nice house on Bonnie Bray Boulevard, and that school was pretty nice. I remember one time this black substitute teacher had come in, and one of the students called her the N name, and then she got into explaining how she was a human being to us, which was actually predominant on my life to see. And I didn't agree with the little girl that was insulting her, actually. But that was Stephen Knight. And then I went to Merrill after that. And in Merrill, I was in a minor little gang of kids, sort of OG type stuff. And
OG, I don't.
that's old gangster, or original gangster.
Original gangsters.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we were kind of gangsters back then. We all rode bikes around and we'd follow each other around. And then this was at Merrill, though. And I remember some of their names of the gang members, but I'm not going to get into that. But we were, we used to, steal stuff. We weren't violent necessarily. But then one of the teachers at Merrill had a son there, and he was bigger than all of us. He was in 9th grade. We were in 7th. And he was bullying us. And because his father was obviously mean to him, and so he was bullying us. And one day we just waited for him because we knew where he was going to walk home, and we went around the corner on our bikes and waited for him, beat the shit out of him. Then the father, who was the gym teacher, beat the shit out of me after that. And the way I got away from him is I kicked him and ran away because he was beating me and I didn't like it. So back in the day, it was kind of rough on kids, I guess. And that was Merrill, and then I went to Grant, and I met some new friends there. I went to Grant because my parents got divorced after that, and we moved from Bonnie Bray to Williams and Iliff Street. And my mom rented a house there, and I used to walk to Grant, and then I did graduate from Grant though, and then I went to South High after that, and I didn't do well at all. I hated school. Mostly I didn't realize it, but they didn't. The teachers and the educators didn't realize this. There's something called dyslexia that people have. Well, I had pretty severe dyslexia, and I couldn't read very well. And so one of the reasons they beat me and stuff is they thought I was insulting them, and they'd think that I was stupid, and people would, call me names, but I couldn't read very well. Yeah. I could read, but not very well, slowly. Yeah. And that persisted until, I was in my late teens, actually. And South High, there was a bunch of bullies too, but they didn't bother me too much. And usually I would try to make, if I went to school, I would try to make friends with the biggest, toughest bully, so that I wouldn't have to fight or get beat up. And that worked pretty well. And then my real friends, though, were always smaller than me. I liked smaller people, but I didn't beat on them or anything. And seems funny that I was taller, and I'd have a lot of friends that were smaller, sort of like Laurel and Hardy or something. And one was Charles Farley. There was a girl that used to live behind our house, and we didn't live in that house anymore, but she was quite pretty, and I was quite amored with her when I was young, and before high school and stuff. But then in high school, I met Charlie Farley, and he kind of liked this girl, and so he came up one day and he says, he started speaking to her, and he says, "Oh, well, you want to get together or something?" And she looked at him and she said, "What was it? Chuck you, Farley, you ain't so muckin' fudge." And that was the last time that he wanted to be with her or something. Right. And I don't know. That was an old saying back then.
So when did you decide to go and join the service then?
Oh, in the service, I was.
How old were you when you went in?
18.
Okay.
But I was doing high school wasn't that pleasant for me, and they had the draft, and I wasn't going to much of high school, so I knew that I would be taken by the government for, drafted into the service. And I thought, well, shit, I don't want to go in the Army. And then I thought, no, I don't want to go in the Air Force. That's too wimpy. And so I decided to go in the Navy. And back then, you didn't have to have a high school education to get in the service either. You had to have an IQ of about 60 or something to pass the test. So, and I couldn't read very well, but I passed the test pretty well to get into the Navy. And then that was, I don't know, a long time ago. But now I've lost track of where I was. So.
Well, so where did you do your basic training for the Navy then?
Oh, San Diego.
Okay.
Was in San Diego, and I had a friend that were friends with me in high school, Tom Krantzer, and his wife was, I still visit her, it's Sandy. Sandy was her name. They've long since been divorced. But they actually, I went in and went through boot camps and stuff, and then came back, and then Tom joined the Navy, because I had. Mm-hmm. And her and Tom moved out to San Diego with me, and we had a little apartment that we went into, and so I had my friends close by. He was on a different ship than I was, though, but we were right in the same area, and we used to, hang out together, and you'd get rent back then was like $32 a month for an apartment. Yeah. So
what did you do in the Navy, though? What kind of what was your
what did
your
I do?
Military occupational specialty?
I was a boatswain's mate, 3rd class, and so I was what they call a deck ape.
Okay.
And deck apes are the ones that climb the rigging and did all this stuff. That was on the Henrico, and then and on the Henrico, it was a transport ship. It was an old cargo ship. It was a troop transport, and it had been made probably, I don't know, in the 19th or early 20th century, but they had converted it into a troop transport, which had a couple 5-inch cannons on it, one on the front, one on the back, and 40 millimeter pom-poms on the sides, 4 of them, I think. And then, so I was on the first landing in Vietnam in, I don't know when it was, but when I was in boot camp, John Kennedy was shot. Okay. And then I came back and saw the pictures of it on TV and such, because I had some time off in between boot camp and going to San Diego. And then I got on the Henrico and was on that ship, and we went on an armada across the country, across the Pacific Ocean,
right? Which
there was, I don't know how many ships, but there was aircraft carriers and destroyers and cruisers, and it was. I call it the last armada, because I doubt if we're ever going to have an armada again. They use airplanes for everything else. And then we went to Da Nang and invaded Da Nang. Actually, maybe I should use the word invaded, but it was. And my job was to take the Marines into these things called Mike boats, where you might have seen pictures of them, where the front of it goes down and they come running off. There's some pictures of that. So that's what I did on the Henrico, is I was a helmsman for the Mike boats, and for there was other small boats that they were on the ship, on the deck of the ship, and then they were picked up with a big boom. These were big boats too, and then the boom would put them in the water, and then as they put them in the water, and then they had these ropes that it was a rope ladder, but it was wide rope ladder, where the Marines would climb down the ladder, and that's how they got in the Mike boats and such. But they climbed down there with their gear most of the time, so they were loaded heavy stuff. And then later on, we started taking the gear down and putting it in because somebody told them to climb down there with their gear. But a couple people fell and stuff in that, and then they were injured pretty bad, the Marines. And the Marines were sort of like, they were supposed to be more tougher, than the Navy and such. So we were deck apes, so we would walk across planks this wide, and there would be a big cargo area beneath it. And the area we'd walk across would be 20 or 30 feet. There'd be a plank about that thick. But that's what we did. We knew how to walk there.
Right.
And then we were loading, and that's when we were loading cargo, we did that. And then one time, one of the Marines was thinking that he could do that. And he tried walking across it and killed him because he fell off. We would just run across it, basically. We knew we were like little squirrels on top of there because we knew how to do it. We'd had a lot of practice. But that was a bad way to put the troops ashore, as going down these rope ladders.
Sure.
And it was dangerous. And because the boat would be coming up as the ship's going down, or vice versa. And so they, there was a lot of injuries in that. And it was all right if the sea was calm. But if it wasn't, then no. It was not a way to do it. And when we went to Vietnam, the sea was not calm when we did our landing there. And Da Nang.
Yeah.
Da Nang was the
That
first
was under
place.
fire, I think, was it?
Pardon?
Was it under fire at the time?
There was no, that's another one. There was no opposition.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. Several hundred Marines got shot because they were shooting each other. They were scared. We were young kids. We were out there, and they'd probably hear a crackle, and they'd start shooting.
Yeah.
And so they took all the guns away except for the perimeter of where they had landed, because there were so many people that were dying from being scared. Because they'd watched all these landings, probably in World War II, bang, 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 and people dying and stuff, and then, and there was no opposition whatsoever. When I was in there, it was like, what is it? Is it Samson and Goliath? Samson is the little guy, and Goliath is a big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were like that. They had
David and Goliath.
Yeah, David and Goliath. That's it. And they I should remember that because you're David.
Yeah.
But we we outnumbered them and could outfire them, and most of them didn't have any guns or anything, and but that was the boat. Then after the landing, then I went back to San Diego, and I volunteered to get on the swift boats because I didn't like the ship. There was a lot of abuse that would go on the ship, and I didn't like that. So I went to school for, I think it was roughly 5 or 6 months. We did Vietnamese language. We shot every gun that was, we shot, not only shot them, we took them apart and put them together, including Russian rifles and, all hand weapons. We learned how to take apart and put together and shoot. And I think we did that in, I think it was in Camp Lejeune, actually, because I think they shipped us there. I remember going to Camp Lejeune, and I remember doing the education, I guess you would call it, and there, and then we went back, to San Diego after that. And then I went on the swift boats, and went over to Vietnam on an airplane, which was a C-47.
Really?
Yeah, I think they have 4 engines. It's the it's the
yeah,
Douglas with the 4 engines, but I think it's the 47 that has 4 engines.
yeah.
But anyway, we were going to Hawaii, and then we were going to go off to Vietnam, and we were going to Hawaii from San Diego, and then about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through, one of the engines quit, and so there was enough power to keep it going, but it's kind of, here's an engine quitting and you're not landing yet. So we got in, and my leader was Robert Bell. He turned out later to be a captain because I looked him up. I even tried to contact him, but I couldn't get him because I liked him.
Yeah.
And he was there was 5 of us on the Swift boat, and he was our leader. He was a Lieutenant JG, and he was our leader. But anyway, we went over there. The plane wouldn't make it, so we landed in Hawaii, and Mr. Bell figured, oh, well, we're in Hawaii. And he was married and had a wife, so he figured out how to get us all per diem for a freaking month in Hawaii before we went to Vietnam. So we had this little vacation before he must have been connected or something. But we were all there, and we got enough money to be in hotels, and I had a little motor scooter I used to go around Hawaii in. We were there for about a month. It was quite fun.
I'll bet.
And then we landed and went to Vietnam. We took a commercial airplane and back then, and then landed in Saigon.
So those Swift boats, tell me about those. Were they like PT boats or something, or
they're
smaller, bigger?
They're 50 foot long.
Okay.
And they're aluminum, so they're very light. They have 2 motors, which are diesel, and so you got 2 screws or propellers, whatever. Right. We call them screws in the Navy.
Right.
They're actually water propellers, and they would operate separately. But the motors were about 750 cubic inch diesels, so large diesels, right. And they were, I think they were either V12. I think they were V12, so they 2 of them. So they were very powerful motors, and the boat was very light, so it would literally stand up. I was the helmsman, so one of the things that I learned in our training was to be a helmsman. Well, on this, they had a little technique which you would do to get out of somebody's way, or which was you had 2. You had one for each one accelerator for each engine.
Right.
So so what you would do is you'd take you'd be going along, and you could be going along pretty fast, where you cut one down to about 3/4 or 2/3 of the volume of the speed,
right. And
you cut the other one back 1/4, so it was going in reverse 1/4. Then you'd give it full rudder, and the boat would go boom, boom, and land like that.
Really?
It was almost 180-degree landing, and it was quite fun. But naturally, when we did that, I had to yell to the whole crew, "I'm going to make this maneuver and hang on."
Yeah. For dear life.
Yeah, but it was quite fun. We never. I think we used that once because we were on the Cambodian border, and there was an invisible line actually between Cambodia and Vietnam. And the Cambodians were then ruled by Pol Pot, who was basically a vicious dictator that murdered millions of people. And they had these PT boats that were made in Switzerland, I believe. They were bigger than us, and they also had more armament, and they could have wiped us off the earth. But I think they didn't do it because they knew that it would be World War III if they did. But we used to cruise along, and they'd be on one side of the theoretical line, which was the border, and we'd be on the other. They'd be in their battle gear, pointing their guns at us. We'd be in our shorts and flip-flops, walking around with a beer in our hand, waving to them. And, and there was one time where it looked like they were getting a little more aggressive, and I just turned the boat around and went the other way. But they. But
so what kind of armament did the swift boats have there?
Oh, the swift boats had a single 50 caliber on the back. It was over and under with a 81 millimeter mortar on the top or on the bottom, and a 50 caliber on the top. And then the gun turret had two twin 50s on it. That was our armament, besides handguns and grenade launchers and rifles, pistols, and.
Geez, that's like. So, and you spent a year doing that in Nam then?
Well, actually, I spent 2 years in Vietnam.
2 years.
Yeah, I did the landing.
Yeah.
And then I was in Vietnam, and then when I went to Vietnam, then when I went back,
Your second tour.
I did on my second tour. I did the swift boat, so I did actually 2 years in combat, and there wasn't a lot of combat, especially where we were. The only thing we really had to watch out for was the Cambodians, because the people in Vietnam, even if they were against the United States and our invasion, they had probably an old rifle from that. Who knows how old it was, and it'd be maybe a single shot rifle, or One time though, I saw this little plops coming up out of the ocean, and I looked and I said, "Mr. Bell, what's that?" I never seen anything like that. He said, "Oh, somebody's shooting at us." I said, "Well, okay," and I get out of the way, so I moved far enough away so they wouldn't get us, and we came back, and we went out, and then we came back, put our flak vests on and all this stuff, so if we got hit, we wouldn't die. And we went into general quarters, and everybody was gotten their stations, and we went back in, and I think I went back in the cabin because there was two helms. There was one in the cabin, in the front, and one outside on the back. And I think I went back in the cabin, and then we got the guy to shoot at us again. We couldn't figure out where it was from, so we were shooting back at him with mortars, machine guns. It was probably one guy too. Yeah. Maybe there was more, but I don't know. And so then we thought, oh well, he keeps shooting at us. He's still alive, I guess. So but I didn't like shooting, especially at anybody, people. But I liked being a helmsman. I liked doing my job. I wasn't, I considered them murderers, and I was not. And I never wanted to do that. But I liked driving it. I loved it. And but anyway, so we called to continue with where I was, if you can follow it. We called a spotter plane up to tell us where he was, or who was that was shooting us. And the spotter saw him, and he was radioing us back while he's over here, and he was giving us directions of how to shoot, how to get the mortar in the right place so it would wipe him out. But we couldn't do it. It wasn't accurate enough with a mortar. It's not like the munitions they have today. They send a drone over, and it's pretty accurate.
Right.
But anyway, so he's got this little Cessna with a single engine Cessna, but on it they had put rockets on it. So he says, "Well, let me see if I can get them." And I was talking to him on the radio. I says, "Well, okay." And he comes down, he starts doing a dive in the Cessna. So, with a Cessna, he's doing a dive with these rockets on it. And I think there's like 3 or 4 rockets on each wing. But I don't know why they would do that. But anyway, he's making this dive, and you hear him, and and the plane stops because there's so much power coming behind it. It actually stops moving, even though he was diving and trying to get back up. Then the engine almost stalls, but he's able to keep going. And then he says back to me, "I think I got him." Because we saw a big explosion. He says, "I think I got him." Okay, So I guess I was complicit in killing somebody, but I wouldn't do that directly if I didn't. That's why I didn't want to go in the Army, because I didn't want to fight combat hand to hand or anything like that. I wanted to be somewhere safe, and I wanted to be somewhere secure. And I knew that the Navy had better education than anybody else. So that's what I did in the Navy.
Did you do a 4-year hitch then?
Yeah, 4 years. And I came back. I came back and we landed in San Diego, or somewhere near San Francisco. And
Angel Island.
yeah, I think that was it. We landed somewhere there in San Francisco, and then we went into Treasure Island, isn't it?
Treasure Island.
Yeah, Treasure Island is the base.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's where we were, and then a lot of stuff happened there too. I actually technically I met some people, and I was staying at their house in San Francisco. And so I was supposed to be in charge of the security of my group, because I was a minor leader and so what I did is I bribed one of the sailors to kind of tell them that I was there, because I had to fill out this paperwork every day. And I said, "Okay, will you fill this out for me? And I gave him some money or something. I don't know what it was, but so I left. And I was gone for a friggin' month. Nobody knew I was gone. And then I came back. And because I was supposed to get out of the Navy, but I didn't want to sit there and stand in line all the time every morning and do this, because I knew they were going to take months, or it was probably six weeks or something that it took them to process all this stuff. And then so then I got out after that, and what I did is I gave the guy, I found a uniform. How I did it is I found a uniform that gave him enough rank to be in charge. I'm hoping that they can't prosecute me for this at this time.
Retroactive, man. They're going to come after you after this.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, you do what you got to do, basically. And I have always sort of been that I could bend things a little bit, but I never wanted to cross the line of being, a criminal or something.
Sure.
I used to bend the rules a bit, but not.
I can appreciate that. That's amazing. So you got discharged, around 68 or so?
Yeah, it was 68. Yeah, 68. And then I liked the Navy, but the reason I left was because I wanted a family. So I wanted a wife and kids. And my family was unsuccessful between my mom and my sister. My mom was great, though. She was a wonderful woman. She supported me my whole life and was very understanding of everything I did. I was a mama's boy, and she was my guardian, by God. And no matter what I did, she would stand right beside me. And this was after my dad was gone. I was divorced and stuff. He wouldn't do anything, basically. He resented me too. But my mom would. torso. Okay.
So it was just the two of you, you and your sister and your mom?
Yeah, me, my sister. No, my sister got married right out of high school. She married this guy, Sonny. Jesus. Sonny was his name. I can't even remember his last name. I was my sister's last name. But she married him right after she got graduated from high school, and then I actually walked her down the aisle, and I was very proud to do that. And I got, I was all of probably 15 or I don't know, whatever.
No.
I was pretty young, but
No.
then there's, at a wedding, there's big parties and stuff. And so I got a little bit drunk and was kind of making out with this girl and stuff. And then somebody saw us, and it was in Commerce City, I think, which was Derby then, actually, I think. But anyway, so somebody passed us by and saw us sitting there, me and this girl, and they came back to harass us, basically, or probably beat the shit out of us, because that's what people did back then. And so we ran away and went back to the party and danced the night away. And it was quite fun. And then my mom was there too. So is my head going out of the way? My torso.
You're leaning against the table.
Oh. Okay.
I
I know how to follow directions, actually, sort of. Except unless I disagree with them.
So did you come back to Denver then after you got out of the service?
No, I went to, I did for a bit. And I stayed with my mom's house, and then my first wife, Betty Jean, she came there and we got married. And then we stayed at my mom's house a little longer, and then we left for San Francisco. We went back to San Francisco and joined the hippie movement,
Right.
basically. And we were, and then we had, we went in a commune, actually. We called it the Pride Family. It was in Molinas, California. And the Grateful Dead lived there, and so did the Grace Slick, who was the singer for,
Crazy Slick, right?
yeah, I can't remember the name of the band, but
Yeah, I don't either, but I remember Grace.
yeah, Grace Slick was she, and I actually kind of knew her. She gave me rides back and forth between San Francisco and I had been in her house because she had a nice house there and stuff, and we were kind of the first Deadheads. We were Deadheads before Deadheads became Deadheads, because we had concerts at the grade school in Bolinas, and some of them would be with the Youngbloods, and some would be with the Grace Slick band, and others would be with different bands. But now I'm gone again. Band's name is the Dead. Grateful Dead were the ones we used to see. We used to go to San Francisco and stuff and see them, and then the Youngbloods used to play too. So we met a lot of people there and a lot of famous people, and it was a really nice place, Bolinas. And I think Bolinas means whale in Spanish.
Really?
I'm not sure, but there was a big bay there, and we used to go out there, and we had our own fishing boat. We'd get fishes, a lot of fish for the commune, and we used to use they call it where everybody agrees, consensus.
Okay.
For our we'd come to meetings and we'd use consensus for that, which is what the Quakers do too.
Sure.
But and make decisions by that. We actually supported ourselves by making candles, and other people did other things too. And we'd have a list of who's going to cook and who's going to do what, and who's going to go into town.
How large was the community?
About 2 years.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many folks were part of it?
Maybe 30.
Really?
Yeah. And we had this one old man who everybody, this was hippie era, mind you, but everybody was sort of the free love era. So
Right.
everybody we were all hippies and stuff, and but there was this one old man. I can't remember his name.
He was what, 40?
No, this guy was about 60 or a little more,
Right.
and he had this real long gray hair, and he was part of our group, but he would walk around naked, and he would try and entice the women because he had a super member when he was walking around, and he would brag about his prowess, yeah. and I thought he was kind of obnoxious, but and none of the women really wanted anything to do with him anyway. But he'd walk around doing this,
Geez, you were part of that whole era, that whole movement, and
yeah.
And in the 70s, then, as that progressed, what else did? When did you? Well, how long were you out on the West Coast then?
I think I'm gonna have to quit right here.
Okay.
Because I'll think I can.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I can but I'll.
We can come back to that. Okay. This is like. I hear you.
Yeah. Well, and you see why I can't do it all at once too.
No, I'm sure.
It's very extensive. And
did you do any acid while you were doing that?
Oh yeah, I used to. Well, later on when we went to Oregon.
Yeah.
Well, that's
another story.
Yeah, I don't want to get into that.
Okay. Well, why don't we sort of? I think that let's take a break here. Okay.
Yeah, let's take a break.
And, whatever.
And how long have we been doing this?
About an hour.
An hour? Well, that's enough for me.
Yeah, no, I think so too.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is David Pyle, and I'm continuing with our interview with Bill Gurley. And today is the 11th or the 21st of November, 2023. We're here at the Rocky Mountain Regional VA in Aurora, Colorado, as part of our Remembering Our Veterans program. So, Billy, we left off in San Francisco. You were just leaving San Francisco. Where did you go from San Francisco?
Well, I went from San Francisco. I was in a commune there, and then we left for Denver. And in the commune, we actually made candles for a living. So I took that skill back to Denver with me and set up a business. And one thing they did, you'd make candles and you'd put chunks of wax inside of it, of different colors, and then it would come out like art, actually.
Right.
And then you could shine them up and stuff, and they look real nice. And each one would be individual and different. And but I didn't. They had molds you could buy, but they were real expensive. So I figured out using one of these.
Fold it up sideways there.
That sideways. But I went to stores or places here in Denver where I could get different sizes. So I had ones like this, and then I had ones like this, and all different sizes. And I also used milk cartons for square ones. I'd buy the flattened milk cartons before anybody would use them, and then I'd take an iron and iron them up and put a wick in them. And most of them were chunky. I called them chunky because you'd put some wax of different colors in cookie pans, and then cut them into little chunks, and then you put these chunks inside it, and then you pour whatever. You could pour different layers of different colors. So they were quite. I thought they were beautiful, and I did this for quite a few years. we had the candle business. But at the same time, now I was I was working on the candles for quite a while, and at the same time, my wife helped me out with the candle. Betty Jean, she was my first wife, and so anyway, we saw an ad in the paper. They used to have newspapers, and you could get jobs from them actually, and so we saw this ad where this person wanted a live-in couple to come in and take care of his place. And his name was James A. Krentler, and he was the owner of a business called Great Western United, which included Shakey's Pizza. And he had a big house, and we had the basement downstairs. There was a swimming pool, tennis court, and I did the landscaping and helped my wife with the cleaning the house and stuff. And actually, I used to cook dinners for one time. I think it was Owens, the governor, came there. And we made dinner for them. He'd have somebody, and I would cater for his dinner parties too. And I remember going up and playing music for some of the people that were there too. He used to have there'd be once a month some big wigs would come in, and we kind of mingle with them. They like mingling with us lower class people too. Oh, did I drop that?
Yeah, it's my mic.
Oh. So
No, sorry, I didn't interrupt it.
oh. Okay.
So you were a chef then as well?
I was when I was in the Navy, I was a cook for a while.
Okay.
And I didn't really like being a cook. I mean, they fired me for being a cook actually, because I used a machine that peeled potatoes, and I used it the wrong way. And so I thought, I don't know, but the chef didn't like that, so they fired me. And then I went on deck, and I worked. I was what they call a deck ape. So I climbed all the rigging and stuff on the ship on the outside. So deck apes work on the outside,
Right.
And I did that for quite a while. I liked climbing up there. They'd turn off the radar so you wouldn't get zapped. And you'd be way up in the air, and the ship would be going back and forth. And, and I kind of liked it. I liked climbing up there, and I was quite agile at the time.
Yeah.
So, but well, I don't know how.
So how long did you live on this estate then? That you were...
on Mr. Krentler's about 4 years, and then my wife hated it. She hated Colorado. She hated the house. Mr. Krentler was divorced, and he had a few kids, but he brought his Sally was his girlfriend. He brought her in, and my wife absolutely hated her. Although we had a swimming pool and anything we wanted, Mr. Krentler was very generous. He sent my oldest son to the Montessori school for a while, and he was, I had use of his cars or whatever I wanted to, and he was quite a wonderful guy actually. But she didn't like it. In fact, she hated Colorado. She complained about the coldness all the time. She had to leave Colorado.
She was a California girl?
No, she's a Okie.
Okay.
From Oklahoma City, I think.
Okay.
Not Muskogee. But anyway, she was an Okie. And, but yeah.
Did you meet her in California at the commune there?
I was, when I was in the Navy, I loved the Navy, but I wanted a family more than anything. My original family was a failure. My father was an alcoholic and used to beat my mother, whip me with a belt, and all kinds of stuff. So my dream was to have a family that worked.
Yeah.
So I basically picked the first woman after I got out of the Navy in San Francisco and got married and brought her back here to Colorado. We stayed at my mom's a while, and we did all this other stuff on the communes and went around the country quite a bit. And okay, I digressed here.
Okay.
Keep me on track.
So we will. So You were there at this place for 4 years then? And
Yeah, about 4 years at Mr. Krintler's.
Yeah.
And then after that, well, we got divorced.
Okay.
And because she didn't want to live in Colorado. She had to go to Oregon because we had traveled through the country for like 2 years in a van. We went all over the place, and she liked Oregon, and we had some friends out there. And she was, I think she was in love with this guy that, I think she was scooting him a bit anyway, and was in love with him, and she wanted to go to that family, and they were called the Mensers. And my first son, his name was William Judson Gurley the second. My father was William Judson, or the third. I'm the second, and my father was William Judson Gurley. And so when we left, when we got divorced, we were down on Pearl Street in Denver, and I brought my pianos and stuff into a house that I'd rented, and I had a bunch of musicians coming in there, and I had saved a lot of money too. For the time, I had about $30,000 I had saved because I had 3 jobs at one time, and I didn't pay any rent, or and so I had quite a bit of money, and so she actually, my wife actually, she was on the bank account too, and you couldn't look at it every day like you do now. So I went down to the bank and found out that she had absconded with about $7,000 out of it, and so then she had to go to Oregon. I refused to sign a paper saying I'm going to let you go to Oregon. And I said, if you do, you're kidnapping my kids. She said, okay. So she left, and I gave her a bunch of money and a car to get there because for my kids and stuff. Because I had Judd and Renee. Renee was younger, and Judd was, I don't know, she was probably 2 or 3 or something, and Judd was maybe 8 or 9 when that happened. And then, so it took me a year to get back to see my kids, but I had a girlfriend at the time, and her name was Marcy. And she went back she lived in New York, and when we got divorced, I went down to Texas for a while and worked down there. And then I went back to New York and asked Marge to see if she wanted to come to Oregon with me because I wanted to be with my kids. And she did. So it took us about a year to get it together to go there, and we got a car and actually a Volkswagen bus we got, and we drove it and head out there, and we stayed. I was in Oregon about 10 years, and I tried to help my kids out then, and I bought them clothes, and they'd come quite often to the house, and I worked in a lumber mill, the veneer plant. They made veneer. They stripped the trees with this machine that took all the bark off, and then they'd run it through a giant lathe. That's how they make veneer. It's a huge lathe. It's 6-8 foot wide, and it's a big knife, and this big log is spinning, and out comes sheets.
Incredible.
And I worked there. The pay was good at that time. I mean, that was years and years ago. I was making like $15 an hour just as a laborer there.
So where were you in Oregon?
Eugene.
Okay.
That's where she went.
Right.
So we followed her. After a year, we followed her out. And for 10 years, we were pretty much with the kids, and they'd come a lot with us, and we'd go out camping and stuff like that. And then what happened was her and her husband were pretty abusive to me. They didn't like me at all. And her husband, who was a friend of mine at one time, really resented me. And he also resented the fact that I was a veteran, because he thought, oh, well, you're a veteran, you got a free ride. Well, that ain't true, but he thought that. And he was actually fairly, he came from a family that was fairly rich. And so at one point what they did was they asked me to sign my parental rights over to Jeffrey Mentzer was his name. And I told them, hell with you. You know where you can take that. And they said, well, we're going to do it anyway. I said, well, how are you going to do that? And they said, oh, well, we're going to go to the school, And the school were going to tell them that that's their name, and that way it'll be legal. And a lawyer told us that, and I knew that was bullshit. But I just was tired of fighting with them all the time.
Yeah.
And then, and they didn't like me anyway. And she was, I think she's crazier than hell, but she thinks I am crazier than hell. But anyway, that's, you know, and anyway, that's when after about 10 years, Marcy had split too. She wanted me to go back east with her. And I said, no, I'm going to stay here with my kids. And so she left, and I didn't have Marcy anymore, but I was still seeing my kids, not as much, because I wasn't especially great with children. I love my children, but I'm not,
right.
You know, I mean, I tried to be a good parent and all that stuff, but I'm not, I don't feel confident in it. And some little kids
Sure.
I'm good with, but once they get to be bigger, I don't know.
So you were in Eugene for what, 10 years or so, you think?
Yeah, about 10 years there.
In the 70s, was it?
Yeah, in the 70s, let's see. I think we were in Eugene and then, yeah. Let's see, I think, yeah, the 70s we were in Eugene, and then about, I think we started with Mr. Krentler in the 70s too, and we were there about 4 years. And then she took the kids without my permission after that. And then, so I went to, first I went down to a school called Rudolf Steiner College, and I actually was a cook there, and I cooked lunch for everybody for my tuition.
Yeah.
And I was there for a couple of years. It's a spiritual school. I don't know.
Right. Rudolf Steiner's.
Rudolf Steiner's, and I got sort of the Rudolf Steiner education. I actually was had a certificate from them saying I could teach grade school, and so I did that for about, I don't know, 6 weeks, and I didn't like it. I didn't like teaching little kids. I didn't feel
Sure.
that I could do it right. So then I decided, well, I was going to go to Canada, because I was down there in Rudolf Steiner for 2 years, and then I kept in touch with my children, but not as much as I should have. But then I came back up to Oregon for a while and visited them, and then I left for Canada. And so, because in the college, I had met people that lived in Canada, and I had connections with the Quakers that lived up there.
Sure.
So I went to a real small village called Argenta in Canada, which was on a huge lake called Kootenay Lake.
Was this in British Columbia? Or?
Yeah, British Columbia.
Oh.
And I went there, and that's where I found my second wife, actually, because Marcy I wasn't married to Marcy ever, but I was married to, my second wife was Ellen. Ellen Burt is her name. And she still lives, and she doesn't live in Argenta anymore. She lives in a small city called Nelson, which is in the same area, because she couldn't live in the wilderness when you're old. It's kind of hard to do unless you're rich.
So was this a Quaker community then?
Oh yeah, there was a Quaker meeting house,
yeah,
and a Quaker school there.
Okay.
And the Quaker school had been sort of went downhill, but the meeting house was still there, and a lot of the Quakers believe in this is the Friends Society, which there's 2 Quaker religions, but the Friends Society believes in ultimate consensus, which means if one person disagrees, then it doesn't happen. So the whole town was run on consensus. We would go to meetings, and we'd all sit in a circle, and we'd decide things like if we wanted somebody to log something, their land up there, and how they could do it, and everybody agreed, so that's the way that they ran the town. And then I don't know, I can't remember when Oh, I left there because I came
Well,
back.
before you leave there, how many people were there?
Oh, in Argenta, about 400.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. And it was a Quaker community.
Yeah,
is
Quaker
that-
community, and we used to have, we had every town in British Columbia, or maybe Canada, I'm not sure, but they have a meeting hall for every town, and then they have a certain amount of money that the government gives for a meeting hall. So we used to have square dances in there, and we'd play music a lot, and we did plays. We did Gilbert and Sullivan plays.
Really?
I did music for them, and I did a few parts in there because when I was in college in the Steiner School,
Mhm.
I did some Shakespeare.
Really?
I did I did Romeo and Juliet and Midsummer Night's Dream, and I was Bottom in Midsummer Night's Dream. So it was great. That was a great part. And I
Yeah,
was
it is a good
Peter in who's sort of the introduction and talks on the entrance and the
Right,
exit,
right.
basically,
Right.
in Romeo and Juliet. And I really enjoyed that. It was quite fun, and I learned a lot about acting there. And I don't know.
What a great experience that must have been. You were there for
Yeah.
how long were you in the community?
On the commune, you mean in Quaker?
In the Quaker,
Oh, geez. Canada was about 15 or 17 years. I have a son there. His name is Nathan.
Okay.
And he's got a band, and his band is called Moontricks. And so I had a son up there, and the only difference between, I wasn't any different with him than I was with my first two children. I was off a lot, and the only difference is I had this ex-wife, because I got divorced from her also, but she was committed to having a relationship, me having a good relationship with my son. And he used to come and visit when I had this band up there, and we were wild. And I told him recently, I said, if it would have been up to me, I said, I'm really glad your mom, let you visit me a lot. But if it was up to me, I wouldn't have let you visit because we were kind of rough on the edges,
Right, right.
I was never, my band was, I wasn't such a big drug user or drinker, but some of them were. I didn't. I remember rehearsals. I'd sit down and I'd be playing keyboard, and I'd put a beer beside me to have a sip now and then,
Sure.
and then I'd be playing away, and then we'd get through and the beer would be gone, and so would all the other beer that I bought, right? So, but yeah, and the woman, we had, it was me, I played keyboard, and then Zaya was Darcene's son. She was a singer, and he played bass, and Peter was her other son, and he played guitar. And so we didn't always have Peter and Zaya, but sometimes it was the three of us, and sometimes it was the five of us. But Zaya ended up drowning in Kootenai Lake, swimming across there and drowning, and then she ended up hating me. I don't know why. Well,
Ellen?
she was not Ellen. Ellen is still my friend. This is Darcene. She was my girlfriend, and that was the band.
Okay.
And the band was her two kids, and Rodney was the drummer.
Okay.
Rodney. He's dead too now too. But he drank a lot too. He used to come in and he'd just be pounding on the drums, and he'd be drunker than hell.
Oh.
And I had to
Reel him in.
Yeah, I got him on brushes for quite a while because he.
So were you playing mostly rock, or what kind of stuff?
Oh, we played eclectic, because a lot of jazz and a lot of some old rock tunes,
Sure.
and some folk music and stuff. It's kind of the same thing I do
Yeah.
now, basically. Only,
Just eclectic kind of.
yeah, just quite a few genres, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was.
Well, music has been a major part of your life here. You know, it's like
Oh,
it
yeah.
sounds. You know, it's like I want to go into that. You think this is a good time to go into that as far as?
Oh yeah,
Would you like to do
I'll
that?
play a
Yeah,
tune.
well, here, tell you what, before we do that, I want to hear a little bit more about that in terms of your musical education. You say you started when you were a kid playing the piano?
Oh yeah, I started. My dad had a Hammond organ, a big church
Yeah.
Hammond organ, and we had a piano, which actually, technically, it was called an organo because it was a piano with an organ part in it too, so you could turn it off and on, and you'd have a dual piano and organ. It was a pretty cool instrument. So and then that was on 890 Bonnie Bray. We lived my father was fairly rich, so we lived in a big house at 890 Bonnie Bray, which is quite an exclusive area. And I used to take the organ. I remember taking that organ and just jacking it up. It had a big speaker like this, and they got we call it a Leslie speaker. What it is there's three horn type speakers in it, and they whirl around like this and they whirl around at different speeds. But it's separate from the organ. It's a separate piece, but you hook the organ up to it, and so you get this kind of tremolo, and it sounds pretty cool. And you could, on that organ, you could make it sound almost like anything. It was the closest thing they have to what a keyboard is now, because you could set it and turn it into a piano if you had the right settings, and they had a whole book full of settings you could do on it too. So I used to mess around with that quite a bit. I took lessons.
Well, talk about your lessons. How long did you take lessons for?
Oh, probably about 5 or 6, 10 years, maybe, I don't know. And then I did in college. I was in college in Colorado too, and I did some music education there. I never got a degree in anything. I just went around taking courses that I was interested in.
That's a great idea.
And well, I learned a lot, a lot of different stuff, because I took auto making and woodworking and music and dance and
a Renaissance man.
I was kind of that. I liked. I didn't necessarily want a degree.
Right.
I just wanted to learn things.
And I think that's.
And I've been to several colleges too, because I was in San Francisco State, and then I was in another one in San Francisco City College, or I think, I'm not sure. And then I went to Metro here in Colorado, and then I went to another college in Canada, where I was. They were teaching business there, but I already had business anyway, sort of. And then that's my candle business. I kept going though all this time, off and on.
So let's go back to your lessons then. Were you classically trained?
Yeah, but I never got really attached to the script, reading the script.
Right.
But I did, and where I really learned how to play was after I got out of the Navy. I learned theory. Theory will take you a long ways, actually, because I think it's just as valuable as being able to read script. But read script, you're attached to the script. You can't, and I was more jazzy than anything else, and rock.
But you had the chops, whatever you had, the tools, the technique to.
Yeah, I had been working on that technique a long time.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's really good to have that kind of grounding as far as just basic technique, etc., and riff from there. It's like, No, I think that was a good musical education. So you played then at different times throughout your life with bands and things, and
Yeah, I had a band in Canada called Collusion,
yeah,
and that was the one I was talking about. And I played little shows by myself too, and we had another one called Bulk Oil for a while because I used to sell oil in bulk.
makes complete sense, Billy. All right. Well, that's interesting. Anyway, it's like it again. Music seems to have played a really significant role in your life. There are things. I mean, would
Yeah.
you consider that was probably one of your major occupations there, or?
Well, I did a lot of labor because I planted trees and
Sure.
put forest fires out in Canada, and I worked on a boat called the Moye. It's in Caslow, Canada, and we revamped it. It was old paddle wheel boat. Revamped it to be in dry dock so that it would be a tourist attraction. So I think I spent a good, I don't know, quite a while on that too. And then in Canada, and we did the whole boat. We took it, we took it all apart and put new lumber in it because it was pretty rotten.
Yeah, sure.
And and put it in dry dock there, and it's still there now. I worked on that for a couple of years too. I liked that. I'd get up in the morning and I had to drive like 40 miles to Caslow, and I'd get up and work on the boat and then come back home at night. And then I worked for a while. I was doing that, and I worked. I had a friend named Hank who was also he's passed now too, Hank Van Tool, and he played harmonica and guitar, and he had a band, and he also had a farm where he had cows and stuff.
Sure.
I worked for him quite a bit actually. He'd go somewhere and I'd take care of his cows and stuff. Although I don't like cows. I like horses. They're fine.
Yeah.
I don't even mind. More horses are smarter. Cows, I'm
not real bright, are they?
I'm not. I don't like being around them very much because they got no respect for people. Horses like people, but cows, nah.
Yeah.
And I figure cows, they're doing their best. They're doing what they should be, getting eaten.
That's funny and interesting. Okay. That project that you were working on, meaning the restoration of that boat, that sounds pretty interesting. And
yeah, that was fun actually. We did the whole. Part of it was they put canvas on top.
Sort of cover that whole thing, protect.
Well, no, it was canvas that was tight.
Okay.
That was kind of glued down to it. That was the top instead of it was on the roof of it. Yeah, and it was wouldn't get wet at all because it was treated and stuff. So we had to make that whole roof of this building very tight with this canvas, and put it on top of that and make sure there wasn't anything wrong with it. And then on the inside there was old pictures because it was like 100 years old boat, maybe older than that. And because they didn't have any roads in this place at the beginning, and anybody that lived in Argenta or Caslow, they would have to take a ferry to get there, and then they had a lot of people had little farms there and orchards and stuff.
Sure.
And to get their products anywhere, they had to put them on the ferry. And the lake is pretty big, though. It's called Kootenai Lake. It's a huge lake, very beautiful. There's a mountain there, which is one of the big mountains. They call it Willet, but I used to call it Mount William because I thought it was my mountain.
That's so you, Bill.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. Well, you must have acquired some pretty good carpentry skills to do that.
Yeah, I'm fair at everything I do. I never got. I never became a super anything, a carpenter or anything, but I would always do stuff. But if I didn't know what to do, I'd ask an expert.
Sure.
How do you do this? And then I'd learn.
Sure.
And that's how I did a lot of things. I did a lot of mechanics and a lot of carpentry, and tree planting was a skill too. It's you're climbing mountains
Right.
that are really steep, and you get all these trees and packs on your
Pouches.
and the trees are small usually, and its pay is, or at that time it was somewhere between, it's paid by the tree, so it's somewhere between 15 cents to $1 a tree. Now $1 tree would be about this big of roots. 15 cents would be about like my finger at the roots. But and so the more you planted, the more money you get. Some people were really fast, and then they'd make a lot of money. And then some people were stashers. They'd go up the mountain and throw their trees somewhere and say and claim to have planted them, but they didn't plant any. So, and then where I worked in forestry for quite a while too, up there. But that's not a. It's a job that is seasonal, doing that stuff. It's all seasonal.
Yeah.
Except the Moye, I worked there in the winter, actually, a couple winters there.
So you left Canada. Is that when you came back to Denver then, or what?
Yeah, I left. Everything, our band fell apart, and everything kind of was going strange. And I had actually moved to Alberta, and I was near Banff. I was working in a nursing home as a maintenance person there, and then I think Darcine was there. Anything, we were all there. The band was there, but then everything fell apart, and I was in this. I had taken a room with this man who was quite a bit older than me, and he didn't like me very well. He just wanted me there to pay his part of the rent. He wasn't very friendly.
No.
And then so I left his place, and I said, well, we're going to be here month by month. It's the only way I'm going to deal with this. I'm not going to write a lease or anything. Right. So then I said, well, I'm going back to the States. I'm leaving. He says, you owe me a lot of money. I said, no, I paid you the rent for this month, and I'm leaving at the end of the month. I told him that at the beginning of the month. He said, oh, no, you owe me more money. And he tried to call my mother. He found out my mother's phone number, and I got really angry with him. And, I didn't hurt him or nothing, but I physically abused him, and I didn't physically abuse him. I cursed at him a lot, left his domain, and then hopped in. I had a van. I hopped in it and came back to Denver because my mom was getting older, and my sister had stopped seeing her and stuff, and she was all alone. So I went in and lived with my mom for a while, and then I bought but she had dementia. I was with her almost 10 years too. I came back down, and my sister was here supposed to be taking care of her, but what my sister was doing was she'd go over to her house, bring her kids and her husband, and mow her lawn and charge her $300 for mowing the lawn. She was not a nice person. Oh yeah, her husband stuck with her till she died, and he's older than she is. He's in his probably close to 90 now. I think he's still alive. I don't know. I went over there one time, but she was kind of a whore and a drug addict. She was a coke addict and a drunk. Her husband didn't drink at all and loved her, and she. I don't know, she did a lot of stuff to my mom. And my son, Nathan, was there with me for a while, too, because I asked him to come down. I said, you come down here, and I'll get you your U.S. citizenship, because your mom's was originally from Oregon, and I'm from Colorado. And I said, I won't have any problem getting that. So Nathan has dual citizenship now, which is good. And then I don't know, but my mom, I was there about 10 years. I couldn't handle it anymore. She was, I couldn't get anybody to help me, for one thing. That I tried to get people to help me with my mom and stuff, and I ended up to well, I had another girlfriend there that helped me for a while, and she was living with me too. That was Jan. She was sort of my last relationship, and she helped me with my mom too. She was a really nice person, very smart. She spoke German and French, and I don't know, and she played music too. She had a harp she played. It was real pretty, and so she got sick. So, well, I had my first heart attack there, and then she got sick. She had cancer, and my mom, her dementia was getting worse. So Jan ended up in passing away. She was probably almost. I knew her from my childhood too. She was my one of my friends, who's still my friend, Tom. She was his sister, and she got cancer anyway and died basically. And then she had a lot of people came to her wake. She was quite popular because she was in this group called Raging Grannies.
Raging Grannies.
And they were a musical group, and they feigned these songs and making fun of mostly George Bush. They hated George Bush Jr. And I thought I liked it, but I didn't care for George Bush either. I don't care for anybody politically myself, but I thought that George Bush was funny. I thought he had a good sense of humor. He's a guy I would sit down and have a beer with. I probably wouldn't vote for him, but I don't vote anyway.
No.
I'm waiting for democracy to come to the USA, then I'll vote.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But, so you've been married twice?
Yeah, twice, and I've had quite a few living girlfriends and stuff.
A serial monogamous kind of thing?
Mostly, yeah.
That probably covers that part of it.
except for
Anyway.
My first wife, Betty Jean. That was not quite.
Tell you what, it's like, before we, tell you what, if you would, you had said that you would play something, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And, how about can you do a couple of stanzas or two of this Hallelujah? Like,
Hallelujah?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I could try. I don't. I usually have my scripts with me when I do that. But let's see. I could probably do the first verse or something.
Yeah,
maybe.
no, that would be fun. It'd be.
Can I get back a bit? Is that okay? Or usually I stand up, but
yeah,
the mic's all set for that. Let's see. I gotta stand. You'll have to set this so I can stand because
Both can stand. Would that be okay?
Sure.
I heard there was a secret chord. David played it, keys, Lord. But you don't really care for music. Do you? We go like this. The fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composing Hallelujah. 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 Try to switch to this other one, the same key. I loved you for a long, long time. I know this love is real. Don't matter how it all went wrong. That don't change the way I feel. I don't believe that time can heal this wound I'm speaking of. Ain't no cure. Ain't no cure for love. I don't expect a medal just because the scene got rough. I see you've been so careful now to forget how good it was, but I ain't never giving in now. I ain't never giving up. There ain't no cure, ain't no cure, ain't no cure for love. There ain't no cure for love. Aha!
Thank you, Billy. That was great. I'm glad that you.
I kind of mixed those two up together.
There you go. It was great. I really
That's
appreciate
fun. That's
appreciate you doing that.
That's
So you
fun.
want to reset us up here then?
Yeah.
Okay, we can pause
Yeah,
it. We'll pause it for a moment and come back to.
yeah, well, then
Come on up here there, Bill.
I'll just get into this.
Again, the armrest.
No, I know.
Am I okay?
You're fine.
But then I'll get into, we can end this, but I'll get into my last experience, which is getting fucked up for the last year.
Okay, we'll do that.
And having my brain drained and all that shit.
Yeah.
And then,
We'll close it up.
yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
We can wrap it up. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. That's a good wrap up
Yeah,
because
I think so too.
yeah.
But I wanted to get that music in there. It's like we were covering that whole thing.
Yeah. That was
Like,
fun, and I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit on that. But
well, I tell you,
it just,
I think you have a lot more talent and ability than you ever realized about yourself. It's like I'm serious. It's like you've got a fine, creative mind, and it's like, I think your childhood was pretty traumatic. I think,
yeah, it was.
a really difficult situation there, But
Yeah, well, my grandma and my grandpa were and my mom. My mom never, well, at first she used to, my dad would come home and she'd say, "Billy's this," and I think what I had was autism back there.
very possibly, yeah.
And nobody knew about it, but I think I had it,
Right.
and so because I used to get out.
So we're rolling. Yeah, apparently we're
Are we
rolling.
still going, or?
Okay.
Oh, okay. But anyway, yeah, I don't know if I did or not. There's no conclusive test
Right.
for autism
Right.
anyway. But anyway, I think I had that because I remember my grandma getting mad at me, and I remember that she never used that paddle except on me once, because I used to say, Billy's acting out again. And I think my acting out was that I did have autism, but I don't know. I mean, but because I remember everybody get mad at me, even my teachers in school, they used to grab me by the hair and stuff, because that's what they did back then, and they
Right,
beat you
right.
and everything else. But anyway, that was,
Abusive crap.
yeah.
Well, anyway, so you were talking. Let's see. Let's go back to your more recent experiences. You had some stuff going on with
Oh,
your brain
yeah.
or something?
Well, I actually was playing music in for a church in Five Points. I'd been there several times, and last time I went there, I made these arrangements I made 3 songs that I arranged, and one of the people was upset, or one of the members of the choir was upset about that. I don't know why, but anyway, I ended up, I don't know how this happened, but I ended up, according to the hospital, having a grand mal seizure. Now, that's very unusual for an old person like me to have a grand mal seizure, but I ended up in Denver Health with a grand mal seizure, and they put me in a coma. It's called an induced coma for a while, and then they drilled a hole in the side of my head to drain the blood out. I saw the X-ray or whatever, the picture of the blood in my brain, and I was there. I don't know how long I was there. My son Nathan was here at the time. I remember that, and then but I barely remember anything about. I think I was in Denver Health 2 or 3 weeks, but I don't remember how long. But what I do remember is waking up in this hospice. And I was the only person in rehab in this hospice, man. Everybody else was insane or spoon-fed or whatever, and I was the only person that was in hospice. And I woke up and I still had my wits, and I would still have my articulation, although I couldn't remember a lot of stuff because I lost a hell of a lot of memory. And what I did is I was in this hospital. I want to get out of there. I want to get back to my home. I want to get back to my dog. And so the first time I escaped from there, because Denver Health put me there, and all I had was a sheet. I had no clothes. I had my skivvies and a sheet to walk around in, and I asked them at this hospice, can I get some clothes? They said, oh yeah, we have some downstairs, but that never came about. So 3 or 4 days later, I figured, because you're incarcerated in this place, they got cameras on both sides of each door, and then they got a bell on both sides of each door, and you can't get in or out without buzzing the bell, and somebody will let you in or out. Well, I was on a little walker with wheels at then, because I couldn't walk very well after that incident either. And so I ended up calling Uber. I had that on my phone. I had my phone. I ended up calling Uber, and I figured, well, I can get out of here. All I got to do is follow somebody out, which I did. So I came to the VA here, and I said, I don't have any clothes. And they gave me clothes. And the doctor said, I said, well, I want to go back home. I said, I just live down here close. He says, oh, no, you're not ready yet. So I said, okay. So I went back there, and they did have a person, teaching me how to walk and helping me out. I had I can't think of the job that they call it. Anyway, I was the only one that he was helping. Everybody else wasn't. And I didn't like the place at all, because it was a corporate place, and they were torturing my roommate, or I felt they were. But he was his name was John Dordery, or Dodderson.
Doherty.
Dodderson, I think, John Dodderson. Okay. And he was 88 years old, and he had spent 20 years in the Army and 7 years in the Navy, and he couldn't hear. But I could talk with him. Nobody else gave it the chance to do, and we had conversations, stuff. We'd salute each other, but every day about 7 o'clock at night, they'd give this guy an enema with some kind of enema machine, and he'd be screaming, "Oh Jesus, Lord, help me! Oh, nurse, nurse!" and all this stuff. It was torture, and I couldn't listen to it. And then he'd have a movement. Of course, it'd smell the whole place up, and I'd get out of there. And I liked him a lot, but I wanted my own room, and they wouldn't give me that either. So then I escaped the second time, and I got well enough so I could walk a little better, and I called an ambulance, and they took me to Rose, and I told the doctor, I said, "I'm going to go home." He says, "Okay," signed me out, and they drove me back home, but I didn't. I was born in Colorado. When on the way home, it was in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I could not remember a single building or anything. Everything looked like it was somewhere I had never been. And it took me quite a while, but then I went back to the house. My neighbor across the street had taken care of my little pup, Buttercup is her name, for the couple months that I was there. And then she was mad at me when I came back with my dog. And then I couldn't walk very far, and what I did is I had scripts. I got all kinds of scripts that I've made of music through the years on a laptop. And I couldn't remember any of the songs either, but I had all the scripts, and my hands still worked, so I started playing the guitar and the piano again to get my memory back.
Oh.
And it took me about a year, actually, to get back to where I could walk a little bit. My balance is still off, and I'm not as good as I was, but I worked really hard, and the music is what brought me back to being a human being and not a zombie.
Right.
That brought me back, and I'm very grateful for that, actually. I feel blessed. I feel like I've had a second chance at life, and I don't know if you believe in that kind of stuff. I do.
I do too.
And but I guess that's how I got here today. And doing this interview with you is, I saw it and said I'll do it. So.
Well, I'm glad you have. I think that's
This has been a lot of fun for me, and I really appreciate everything you've done and everything you've done too, sir.
So I was just coming to that. So we have some final things that we want to look at here. It's like one on reflections. Okay, it's like how did your military experience affect your life?
Oh, I did.
What kind of things do you think you got out of the military there?
I think had I not been in the military, I would have become a criminal. Really, because I was kind of wild, and I was never a fighter, but I was kind of on the edge of a lot of stuff. And I think if I hadn't been in the military, I would have my life would have been totally different. I probably would have been in jail or something, because I took it seriously. I went in and I took it seriously, and I did what I had to do. And at one point I did a few heroic things. There was a little, we were on a picnic, and there was a little boat, dinghy type boat, like 10 feet long or something. And it was there, and there was a lot of people that weren't in swift boats that were there. And there was natives. The children would come and see us, because if we came somewhere, then they'd follow us. So we went out. This one guy was on a tin can. He wasn't a swift guy, and he came with us, and we were on this little dinghy. And we got about, I don't know, 100 yards out on this dinghy, and it sank. And so here I am. This guy, the guy from the tin can, he was freaking out. He was trying to grab me. And I got really angry. I told him I'd kill him if he touched me. And I said, get on your back and float, because there was a lot of little islands around there within a couple miles. But we couldn't get back to where we were from because the current was going the wrong way. So I took the little boy there, and I'd love to go back to Vietnam and see what happened to him. And I put him on my chest, because he wouldn't have survived. He was maybe 6, 8 years old, but I put him on my chest, and I just swam with him on my chest. And then we got to another uninhabited island, but it was the closest thing where we could get off the current and get to where we could get in. And then as we went in, I cut the hell out of my feet on the coral, and then we were there for a few. Well, we were close to boats coming by, so we were there, I don't know, a few hours, and they picked us up because we were still close to our base. And there was people around there, and there was the Vietnamese Navy there, and they picked us up. And then I ended up in sick bay for quite a while because I ended up getting coral poisoning on my feet.
Really?
Yeah, and I couldn't. I was out. I went on the next tour. Well, we'd go out for 3 or 4 or 5 days, and I went on the next one, even though my legs were, and by the time they had to bring me back in about 2 days because my feet were just swelling up.
Sure.
And I ended up putting me in boric acid and stuff, and then at that I was actually Mr. Bell, who was our leader of our boat. Our boat was PCF 101. We were one of the first swift boats in Vietnam.
So were you on the Mekong?
No, I was. We were on. I was at a place called An Toi Phu Quoc. An Toi was the town.
Okay.
Phu Quoc is an island. And there were many islands around where I was. So we became friends with a lot of the people that were on the islands, and then we helped them out. We'd even go to barbecues with them and stuff. And then here's the political part. I'm going to get into this too.
Yeah.
But the worst thing I saw happen to the whole situation there was John Kerry. He came in and he didn't go through any of the training we did. We spent a good 6 months in training. He just wanted to be on a swift boat because his idol, John Kennedy, had been on a boat, on a PT boat. And so he had enough political clout, so they just put him on it without any training or anything. And he went rogue. He actually went rogue on us, and I believe that he attacked some of the villages that we had made friends with. And but that was the last of mine. I only met him for a bit. And then the last thing I saw of him is he went before Congress because he was a Kennedy clan.
Right.
He could go into Congress, and then he was demeaning all the sailors and stuff were there, saying that we were all drunks and drug addicts and whatever else he said. And he was the hero, naturally.
Right.
But anyway, that's another story.
So there's anything you miss about the service?
In a way, I regret not staying in for 20 years because my marriage was such a failure, and and I had balance when I was there, and as being a civilian, it's entirely different. You don't have a group of people that are backing you.
Sure.
You don't have a structure. You don't have a group of people. As a veteran, you have that. That's why I come to this hospital. I feel safer than anywhere else in the world, basically, because you go out there, there's somebody, especially in this day and age, there's a lot of mayhem and violence and murders going on, and it wasn't that way back then. people used to actually respect each other and have courtesy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what would you like people to know or remember about your personal journey?
That
What would be the takeaway on this, huh?
I am me, and I am what I am, and that's all that I am, said Popeye the Sailor Man.
Billy. So, let's see. Is there anything you'd like to leave for future generations who will view this interview?
What I would like is, I think anybody in the future should consider the military as a good thing to do, because I don't know what the military is now, but I know we were helping a lot of people there, and we're not a bunch of murderers like Carrie said. We're not. We came in to help people, and from what I understand, they're still doing that. Is they come and try to set up schools and such and for people, and then it doesn't work because somebody disagrees with it. But if they just gave a little more latitude, we probably wouldn't have a war in the Middle East like we do. If there was a little bit more latitude towards the helping that we try to do, and less hating of between people, I think we'd have a better world. Basically, I'd like to see a better world. I'd like to see. I mean, I never will, because people. It seems like people are born to either they're either attracted or repelled to each other. You know, there's everything seems to be so dichotomous. There's no gray zone anywhere anymore. There used to be you could explain something and people could understand it, but now with the AI and all that stuff, it's all gone away too. Because it's like everybody has a script, just like you. Yours is a good script, though.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was just thinking, in terms of your, this Rudolf Steiner, I mean, he was a major influence, I'm sure, in your life.
Yeah.
And even, as far as of being part of that Quaker community. I mean, those are nonviolent people. And,
well, Rene Corrido was the leader at the Waldorf school.
right.
He was actually from Colorado, and I had actually met him and his wife years before. They had a beatnik club downtown Denver somewhere, and I had met him there, and then I ended up meeting him again back in when I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that he's passed on now because he was older. But I really liked him. We used to do this thing like we could make fun of anybody, like a roast.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, we used to do these roasts, and we do them against the teachers and stuff, and it would be really, really funny.
Okay. So, Bill, the last question here: is there anything you would like to add that we've not covered in this interview?
No, not really. I think we did all that I can do, and I'm glad we were able to do this in 2 sessions too, because that helped me out, because then I go back and think. Although I can't think very well anyway, but
You've done fine. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Really glad to get to know you, and so I hope this has been a good experience for you.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a great experience.
That, I think, covers it for William Billy Gurley.
Or William Judson Gurley II.
Is that what it was? Yeah.
That's my official name.
Not Junior.
No, the second. See, my oldest son was the third.
No.
But then he got the name Mentzer because of
Right.
Yeah, I think I explained that. I don't know if I mentioned. Well,
You did.
yeah.
You did. We covered that.
But yeah, no. Well, they